We'll have a separate call next week, maybe.
Done. Hi everybody, so we're back with our next team, Finarkein Analytics. Due to space constraints, I can't bring the other team members on stage, but Pradeep and Srirang also contributed to this, so please do share your virtual applause. Nikhil, Dheeraj, Akash, you have 12 minutes. Floor is yours.
All right, so I'm going to assume my screen is visible. So I'm going to start. Right, hi everyone, this is Nikhil from Team Finarkein. Joining me today are Akash, Dheeraj, Srirang and Pradeep. So let's quickly dive into what we have built, Flux, which is an innovation platform for query execution. So what is Flux? Flux is essentially a middleware which sits between the account aggregators and the FIUs. It is a powerful modular platform where on one end you have the data source connectors, which connect with data sources like account aggregators. You have your database connectors, files. We're working on the open rails as we speak. And on the other end, we have the Flux execution engine, where any FIU or any other technology, fintech company can come and build their own rails. So what we have provided is a uniform query layer on top of our execution engine and a no-code, low-maintenance GUI to build out your own rails. We are also providing standard out-of-the-box rails and pipelines, which we feel are commonplace use cases in the fintech domain. And coming
Sorry,
to
I can't hear anything. I'm not sure if
I can hear you clearly.
uh,
I think the audio in this particular application, we need to have headsets, otherwise it's not very clear.
should I proceed?
Yeah, Nikhil, can you speak a bit louder?
Yeah, I think I'll do that. Is it better now?
It's very clear for me.
Yeah, it's
Okay, I'll go ahead. I'll be a little loud. So we are also extremely cognizant of transparency and privacy principles, and we have tried to incorporate that in our design. So with that said, let's quickly dive into the demo. So we'll first take a look at our GUI. So a very common use case that we have seen from PFM applications is categorization. So today we are going to build a categorization pipeline. So we're going to select a data source on the Flux frame. We're going to select the FI type. We want to work on the transactions. Next, we add a custom block. So in the custom block, we have provided services like categorization. So that's what we're going to go with today. We want to categorize on the narration column. We upload some custom categorization logic here, which in this case is simple regular expressions, but it can just as easily be a deep learning text classifier with some kind of feedback loop if that's what you want. So it's up to you. You can build your own rails or you can use what we are giving you. Next, since you want the categories, you want to create that fancy pie chart with the categories and the amounts. So that's what we're going to do. So we will be grouping on this new column categories. We will select amount and we want the sum. So that's what we will do. And lastly, you add a collect block to end any pipeline. In the collect block, what you add is the columns you want in the response. So we want these two columns. And that's it. You save your pipeline. We're going to save in this folder called Portfos. We're going to give it a nice name and we'll save it. So this is pipeline creation. And in the sandbox mode, you can preview at each of these steps to understand if your pipeline is working. And in production, what you would do is you would go to your pipeline, you would pass us the required headers and the authorizations, and in the body you just tell us the consent ID and the data range, and we take care of the rest, where we are fetching the data from the account aggregator. We are also decrypting it, and then we are running the pipeline. So that categorization pipeline which I just mentioned, this is how it looks like in code. So I'm just going to run this test case real fast. So if you are a tech guy, you're a developer, you can just as easily write that pipeline out. You don't have to use our no code GUI. And this is how it would look like. The pipeline encrypted with your FIU credentials and serialized and saved at Flux. When you do want to trigger the pipeline using your credentials, we will be decrypting the pipeline, bringing out the data, validating your data request, and then finally running the pipeline. So for this, for today's demo, we are running this pipeline on 2 years of data on my ICICI account, which I have fetched using the OneMoney account aggregator API. And this is the final output. So we ran this on around 650 transactions. We were not able to classify 46, but the rest of them, we have categorized them as, salary, entertainment, health, and so on. So this was the demo. Since we are a little short of time, I'm going to rush through to the next slide. So this is how it would look like in production, where the FIU is passing the pipeline ID with the other parameters as I showed previously, and we run this on the Flux cloud, and the FIU gets just the output. So the hackathon topics, one of them was obviously the query standard. We see a strong need for something like Flux because of the way, say, this particular transaction works right now. Give me top 5 Swiggy transactions. The FIU is going to bring out data from all your linked bank accounts and then do the filtering and then show the top 5 transactions. Whereas with something like Flux, the visibility is only on those actual top 5 transactions. Next, the virtual data room concept. So because of the way the virtual data room concept is framed and the way we have designed Flux, this can just as easily be done in Flux, where you are bringing where one party is bringing their code, the other party is bringing maybe their data using one of the Flux fibers. They build out their own rails, and then you take a business decision based on the output. So why did we decide to build this? We were initially building out a PFM application for more than a year. During that last 1 year or so, we sorry.
No, I'm just saying, sorry, 5 minutes left. You have 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Including Q&A, right?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll just. So these were some of the issues that we are hoping to solve, where we are not just looking to be a technology provider, but a comprehensive handholder for the FIU ecosystem, where we are partnering with legal firms on the compliance end as well. So let's quickly go to the question and answers, because I feel this is a topic which needs sufficient time for that. Right. So I'll just stop presenting, and we are open for questions.
Yeah, Nikhil, just there are two questions. One is where does the Flux exactly run on, and how do you get the data to Flux?
Right.
And how do you differentiate this from the current categorization tools that are out there?
Correct. So for the first point, that I would like to mention, that this is not just a categorization tool. You can build out pretty much any use case that an FIU may have using Flux. And secondly, the way I see it is that every single account aggregator has their FIP modules and their FIU modules. So Flux is definitely a similar offering. And if I think the others are seeing a space and need for it, I think Flux is also in a similar domain. And the other question as to how the data flow is working is that we are using the FIU credentials to bring out the data. And as you saw, the consent ID is passed to us when the pipeline is executed. So that implies that the FIU has taken consent prior to executing the pipeline. And we will just be creating the session ID and then initiating the data fetch request against that session ID. I hope that covers everything.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, got it.
How do you interpret the transaction? So, as an example, you showed a salary and so on and so forth.
Right.
How do you know that it is really salary and not something else?
Right. I mean, we can switch back over to the code and we can do the deep dive on a second call, but I guess we are time constrained. So the way we have done it right now is that it is a feedback loop on working on regular expressions. So we to start with we have defined few expressions which where there is pattern matching, and as more and more data comes onto our system and users are labeling them, we are able to smartly build out those regular expressions and hopefully make our categorization engine smarter. So I can happily do a deep dive, but I guess we don't have time to do that right now.
Yeah, 2 minutes. If we have more questions from the judges.
How's data stored, Nikhil? Can you talk a little bit about data security?
Right. So on the data security front, we are following the TLS 1.3 standards and we are using Spring Security. So the way we have designed it, the pipeline is obviously encrypted with the FIU credentials. So we cannot understand, we have no idea what's inside the pipeline. Just before you want to actually execute the pipeline is when we are decrypting it with your credentials, and likewise with the data request. The data is requested using the consent ID that you have passed to us when you want to execute the pipeline. So prior to that, we do not have access to the data, and post the pipeline execution, we are still exploring. There are some use cases where we have spoken with a few FIUs and they want data persistence and storage as well. So this is something that we are exploring with our legal team as well to figure out, what we can do with the data. Do we keep it for that session? Do we persist it? Or and again, it depends. If somebody has the store mode and not the query mode of getting data, so it implies that customer has consented to storage of data. So now the question is, where is the data stored? Can it be stored at Flux's end? Can it be stored at the FIU's end? Is there a data transfer agreement protocol in place? These are some open-ended questions that we are also facing, to be honest.
One last question. In terms of the feedback loop, right? These learning models, right?
Yes.
Regex can take you to some extent, right? It's a fairly involved problem, right? Like you expect the callers to also give you the feedback loop in terms of how will you train this model?
Right. So there is the observer pattern, and there are webhooks. So we will be subscribing to an FIU's webhook where they will be publishing this kind of feedback information for that particular pipeline, and the FIU developer has to use the merge block. So we have a merge block where this kind of information from external sources can be blended in and merged to create a new flux frame. So each flux frame can be merged with other flux frames for such blended data output. This is how we are doing it right now.
But you will be blindly accepting a feedback loop, whether it's false positive or anything else doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean that is exactly what the FIU wants, right? Now it's not up to us to correct them or validate. If they want some kind of validation, they need to add that logic as well.
So, guys, your time has elapsed. Thank you very much, Nikhil, Dheeraj, Akash, and Pradeep and Srirang, who are not on stage. Team Finarkein Analytics, everybody. We'll be back shortly with the next team, Team Coin Earth. I request all Team Coin Earth members to be ready. You'll receive an invite from me shortly. We'll be back.